In 1973, Carowinds opened its gates for the first time. This was the brainchild of Earl Patterson Hall, a businessman from Charlotte, North Carolina, and the park would straddle the North Carolina-South Carolina state line. He wanted the park to bring the Carolinas together. The park ran into financial problems just 2 years after it opened, and it was sold to Taft Broadcasting in 1975. It became part of the Kings Island Kings Dominion family and followed the same fate as those parks, becoming a Paramount Park in 1992 and a Cedar Fair Park in 2006. Cedar Fair has made Carowinds a preferred park in the chain, getting some of the best investments and getting them often, making this one of the best parks in the country. Over its 50-year history, Carowinds has seen 17 coasters open and only 3 of them close. Today, I want to rank all of them up. These are the coasters of Carowinds, past and present, ranked from worst to first. Number 17. Kitty Hawk of Vekoma Hang and Bang, opened in 2003. When Paramount was expanding their kids areas in the early 2000s, they bought a few of these Vekomas. On paper, they look pretty good. Over 1,100 feet of track, 48.6 feet tall, 26 miles per hour. You get to ride under the track, which is probably a new experience for the kids. But for some reason, these just do not ride well. The jerky back and forth on the track makes your head bounce around the restraint, and for me, it ruins the ride experience. This opened as Rugrats Runaway Reptar, back when their kids area was themed to Nickelodeon Central. When it was rethemed to Planet Snoopy, it took on the name Flying Ace Aerial Chase. When Planet Snoopy became Camp Snoopy, it got its current name, Kitty Hawk, a nod to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where the Wright brothers did their first flight trials. Number 16. Vortex, a B&M stand-up, opened in 1992. Paramount got in early on the B&M game, seeing Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America and ordering 2 for their own parks. One went to their own Great America in California, also called Vortex, and the next year, Carowinds got the other one. I've ridden every B&M in America, and this is my least favorite. It's the only one of the original stand-ups still in its current form. Iron Wolf and the other Vortex are now flowless coasters, and what can I say? It's as basic as it is uncomfortable. It stands 90 feet tall, covers just over 2,000 feet of track, tops out at 50 miles per hour, and goes through 2 inversions. I think this would be better off as a flowless coaster, but honestly, the best case scenario is to move this out of Carowinds into a smaller park. Number 15. Hurler, an International Coasters wooden coaster, opened in 1994. Paramount strikes once again, and they wanted to add a Wayne's World section to Carowinds as well as King's Dominion. The star of the new area would be the wooden coaster called Hurler, a reference from the movies to hurling or vomiting. Honestly, a pretty good name for a coaster in general, even with the Wayne's World theme being long gone. But this coaster is so mild, I don't think it can make anyone sick. I never thought it was rough. Back in 2019, maybe a little bit, but I just hate the layout. It's 83 feet tall, hits 50 miles per hour, and covers over 3,100 feet of track. It's full of very mild dips and very wide turns. No forces. The thrill factor is about the same as the fun factor, basically 0. King's Dominion shut theirs down and turned it over to RMC in 2018. I wonder if that will be the same fate for this hurler as well. Number 14. Wilderness Run, an E&F Miler family coaster, opened in 1998. The park's smallest coaster ranks only 4th to last, because, for what it is, it's pretty awesome. It's only 15 feet tall, but it has a curved drop, a camelback, a helix, and then a run of bunny hops at the end, all while turning. These are surprisingly intense. These E&F Miler coasters are some of the best kids coasters out there, and they could even be too intense for some of the younger kids. This opened under Paramount as Taxi Jam, then got a Nickelodeon theme in 2005. Hey Arnold's Taxi Chase. Then, when Cedar Fair rethemed the area to Planet Snoopy, it was renamed Lucy's Krabby Cabby, and now Wilderness Run when Planet Snoopy became Camp Snoopy. Number 13. Ricochet, a Mock Rides Wild Mouse, opened in 2002. 5 coasters in a row at the bottom of this list, all added by Paramount. You can't say they didn't invest in the park, just the rides they added weren't the best. There's nothing wrong with Ricochet. It's your typical compact park wild mouse, meaning it doesn't start with a big drop off the lift. It covers 1,200 feet of track, stands 46 feet tall, hits 28 miles per hour, and it just winds around its course with hairpin turns and sharp dips. It's a good family coaster, but I can't rank it any higher than this. Number 12. Carolina Gold Rusher, an Aero mine train, opened in 1973. The only coaster that opened with this park was this mine train, very typical for parks starting out in that era. This is a long ride with 2 lift hills and a tunnel, covering almost 2,400 feet. And of all the mine trains that I've ridden, I've gotta say, this one is one of the most aggressive. Don't expect it to rip your face off or anything like that, but when it reaches the top speed, it gets pretty intense, especially when you factor in the awkward aero track work. Number 11. Flying Super Saturator, a set point water coaster, opened in 2000, closed in 2008. The first defunct coaster on this list comes courtesy of Paramount, and this one is different. Riders sit in 4-person cars under the track, rise up 42 feet, hit a top speed of 30 miles per hour, cover just under 1,100 feet of track, but this is all about the water element. Riders would be able to dump up to 4 gallons of water onto guests down below, but there were geysers and water cannons on the ground where guests could return the favor. This was the first ride of its kind, a very gimmicky coaster, and Cedar Fair pulled the plug on it after its 9th season. It was located where Flying Cobras is now. Number 10. Woodstock Express, a PTC family wooden coaster, opened in 1975. Once Taft acquired the park, they did for Carowinds what they did for their other 2 parks, give it one of their classic family woodies. Standing about 35 feet tall and hitting 35 miles per hour, covering 1,356 feet of track, going through a pretty basic double out and back layout, just on a miniature scale. There's something charming about a family wooden coaster, and this doesn't have amazing forces, but it's not boring either. This opened as Scooby-Doo. When Paramount took over, it was renamed Scooby-Doo Ghoster Coaster, then used the Nickelodeon theme of Fairly Odd Coaster, and now joins all the other Cedar Fair family woodies as Woodstock Express. Number 9. Carolina Cyclone, an aero looper, opened in 1980. For 4 years, between Corkscrew at Cedar Point and Carolina Cyclone, nobody ordered a coaster with more than 3 inversions. Carowinds got the first one in the world, this featuring 4 with 2 loops and 2 corkscrews, ending with an upward helix. It started with a 95-foot lift, a 65-foot straight drop, tops out at 41 miles per hour, covers 2,100 feet of track, and all in all, it's an enjoyable ride. It's not the most exciting ride, but for a coaster built in 1980, you get what you get. But one thing I can say, it's got some intensity and it's still running very smooth. Kudos to the park for keeping this historic coaster running very well. Number 8. Flying Cobras, a Vekoma boomerang, opened in 2009. When Cedar Fair took over, this was the first coaster they gave the park. They had just torn out Flying Super Saturator, and their replacement was this relocated boomerang from Geauga Lake. This was known as Mind Eraser and Headspin over there, and when they shut the park down, there was a rummage sale for all its rides. Carowinds got the boomerang, lucky them, but at least it came with a brand new train. It also came with the name Carolina Cobra, and with those vests, it eliminated the headbanging during the Cobra roll. Boomerangs are not bad rides, even if they're overdone. My favorite part is the backwards loop, which makes my stomach drop every time. 116 feet tall, 47-mile-an-hour top speed, 935 feet of track covered forward and backward, and with the smoothness of Flying Cobras, this is one of the better coasters still operating in the park. Number 7. White Lightning, a Schwarzkopf shuttle loop, opened in 1977, closed in 1988. These shuttle loops started popping up everywhere in the late 70s. Taft also getting one for King's Dominion, this one being the first looping coaster in Carowinds history. This would use a weight drop to launch a train out at 57 miles per hour, going through the loop, up a 138-foot spike, and do it all backwards, ending with a backward spike before coming back to the station. I never rode this one, but I've ridden Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm, and it's intense, disorienting, and impossible not to have fun. This had maintenance issues and was removed after 12 seasons, being moved to Gold Reef City in South Africa, where it still operates today. This was located where Carolina Harbor is now. Number 6. Thunder Road, a PTC dual wooden coaster, opened in 1976, closed in 2015. When Taft opened Kings Island and Kings Dominion, they used dueling PTC coasters as their headline attraction. When they acquired Carowinds, they did the same thing right off the bat. Thunder Road stood 93 feet tall, hit a top speed of 58 miles per hour, and covered 3,800 feet of track. The two sides are mirror images of each other, your typical out and back layout, focusing on very small airtime hills and one big turnaround. I never rode this one, but I've ridden its sister coasters and they are all very solid rides. That is, assuming Carowinds kept it running smooth. The park retired this after the 2015 season, using the land to expand their water park. Number 5. Nighthawk, a Vekoma Flying Dutchman, opened in 2004. This was originally at Paramount's Great America as Stealth, but as the prototype, it had a lot of problems. Paramount wanted to move it out of their more popular park and get it to a park with less foot traffic. At the time, that being Carowinds. It was renamed Borg Assimilator, taking on a Star Trek theme, and once Cedar Fair took over, it was renamed Nighthawk. This is often ridiculed as the worst Flying Dutchman, the roughness being too much to overcome, especially in the final corkscrews. I thought it was kinda janky, but nothing too bad, and I'm a big fan of the Flying Dutchman model. You start off on your back, rise up 115 feet, flip over, and dive down at 51 miles per hour, covering almost 2,800 feet of track and 5 inversions. The vertical loop on your back is the most unique and intense experience on the ride. And if the roughness doesn't bother you, this is a very fun ride, at least when it's actually open. Number 4. Copperhead Strike, a mock rides multi-launch, opened in 2019. Now, we're into the major Cedar Fair editions, the ones that made the park elite, and we're starting off with the park's newest coaster. After White Lightning left the park in 1988, they were left without a launch coaster for over 30 years. Carowinds went to mock rides to give them not only a launch coaster, but also an inversion machine. What makes Copperhead Strike so special is the variety of forces. You have your launches and inversions, but also your ejector airtime hills and hangtime moments. It launches at 50 miles per hour, has a top height of 82 feet but no real drop, over 3,200 feet of track and 5 inversions, starting off with a super slow JoJo roll out of the station. I've ridden Copperhead Strike on 3 occasions, and it seems kind of temperamental. For as impressive as this ride is, I've had more disappointing rides than good ones, but I've seen this ride at its best, and it's got the potential to be great. Through it all, I'm a fan of this ride, and I love the addition for Carowinds. Number 3. Afterburn, a B&M invert, opened in 1999. By far, Paramount's best addition for Carowinds, and I actually believe this was the best coaster Paramount ever added to any of their parks. This opened as Top Gun the Jet Coaster and is widely celebrated as one of B&M's best inverts. I would agree, it's not my favorite or even top 3, but it's one of the most intense and enjoyable inverts out there. 113 feet tall, 62 miles per hour, almost 3,000 feet of track and 6 inversions. The Batwing is far and away the most intense element in the ride, and even though it seems kinda short, its intensity makes up for it. This was supposed to be named after the Godzilla movie, but since that flopped, they went with the classic Top Gun theme. And when Cedar Fair took over, they had to change the name but kept its theme. Number 2. Intimidator, a B&M Hyper, opened in 2010. Cedar Fair was handing out big-time B&Ms to the new parks at the end of the decade, and Carowinds got a good one. Themed to NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt, this takes you up 232 feet, drops you down 211 feet, hits 75 miles per hour, covers over a mile of track, and it's an absolute airtime factory. It gets some heat for having too many trim brakes, and that's not unfair. It lives up to its name, Intimidator, but you will still be flying out of your seat on those camelbacks, ending with a small helix before the brakes. It's not my favorite B&M Hyper, but I love some good floater airtime, and this one is full of it. Number 1. Fury 325, a B&M Giga, opened in 2015. In 2012, Cedar Fair bought the first B&M Giga for Canada's Wonderland. Leviathan was a big success, and Cedar Fair was looking for more parks worthy of a coaster this big and this expensive. In 2013, Cedar Fair worked out a deal with Charlotte and Mecklenburg County for some tax incentives, and soon after, Fury 325 was in the works. It was the next level of B&M Giga, a coaster we still haven't seen replicated to this day. 325 feet tall, 320 foot drop, 95 miles per hour, over 6,600 feet of track. This even sparked a brand new entrance for the park, with the ride going over and under the main path to the front gate. Not only is this coaster huge, it has one of the best layouts of all time. It's a perfect mix of speed, airtime, and whip. Not overly intense, but also not boring at all. It could do without a trim on its first airtime hill in the finale, and that helix isn't the best, but for a coaster that's currently the 4th longest in the world, it can afford to have a few not so great moments. This is my number 2 overall coaster on my list, so of course, it's tops at Carowinds. They will be hard-pressed to ever top Fury 325. That's a wrap on all the coasters in Carowinds history. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything here, what you would have changed around, and if you have any memories at Carowinds. I've been here 4 times between 2018 and 2022. It's a top 10 park for me, and like I always say, even when it doesn't rain at Carowinds, it still rains. That usually means I get a lot of walk-on rides here, and that's been the case for all but one day that I've been there. That warm Saturday in July just so happened to be one of the most crowded days I've ever seen at any park. So if you're gonna make it to the park, be sure to try it on a weekday. We had an amazing day there in 2022, getting to ride more than half these coasters, so my rankings are pretty up to date. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coaster rankings, please give me a sub. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you're also a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.